So I want to turn this quickly.
Sure.
Go off a right tangent.
That's fine.
How do you think business culture, maybe not culture, how do you think business is changing in America?
Definitely going more digital.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least, again, I work for a digital company, but I'm not even talking that. It's just that now your presence online matters a lot no matter what company you are. And I say that because we work with all kinds of companies that are just scrambling to basically get better online presences.
Sure.
And a lot of that is because, I mean, people don't realize that 90 some odd % of internet traffic is on your phone.
Yeah.
And so
and that has, well, I think it's doubled every year for like the last 5 years. Because 5 years ago, it was, I think it accounted like 25% or something.
It's crazy how fast it's moving. And so what that means is, people are like, well, what does that really mean? That just means people aren't surfing the internet. Like, no, that's not what that means. What it means is that now everybody is using their phone to basically like look at every aspect of every company they interact with. So we'll take doctors, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Like the new data shows, and this is what we specifically have products for these people because of this data. Like it's not like, and it's working, which is it used to be referrals. Like, so if you're a standalone doctor, like I'm not saying you work but if you don't work for a massive clinic, if you're a standalone doctor, you're a specialist, you're any kind of thing like that, chiropractor or any of those kinds of things. It used to be you relied a lot on referral business from other doctors or, general practitioners, family physicians, that stuff. But now, yes, that's a big portion of it, but consumers, now that they can get all this information at their fingertips, they might get a referral to you, then they're Googling you.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to go see this person. And now the number one thing that people will either show up or not show up for is if you have digital paperwork. So as a consumer, I don't want to show up to a doctor's office, sit in the waiting room, then have somebody walk me out like 9,000 stack of paper. And then
That's interesting
I have to go through it because, and then I sit in the waiting room.
You get there half hour early so you can fill out all this stuff.
With a mask on.
Yeah.
Like this is the most, I'm not like, so I'm
in a room full of other people.
So COVID's such a problem.
Like send that information
as a doctor
to me first.
As a doctor, you want me to sit in this room.
Yeah.
And we'll like all that beside itself. These are the rules, right? So we're going to pretend like all of it's true, but like now you want me to sit in this room with all these other sick people theoretically,
right?
So that I can fill out all this paperwork, so that you can put it in there, and then I have to go. So now I'm just waiting. So now a doctor's appointment, I can see the doctor for 20 minutes, if I'm lucky. Took me 3 hours to go to, on the high end, probably closer to an hour and a half to 2 hours. And it's like, or you can send me a link. And in that link, I can hit on my phone. It's all auto.
Right.
So I already get all this information out the door, done. And then not only that, it tracks. So now all I do when I get an appointment is I get an alert like, hey, has anything changed? Is your pain still in the same location? Is this still in the same way? Has anything changed since this date? On this date, you answered this.
Those forms are even going to get simpler where eventually there's just going to be like touchpad type deal.
Already is.
Yeah, sure.
100%. And
but that's like streamlined. There's very few people who are doing that.
Correct. And that's because the medical world, because of the way that insurance and the government works and stuff like that, is like the last industry to really modernize. And so just like we did with, the labor company, which is I want a button on my phone. I want to have the least amount of
touches,
difficulty between my customer and me. This is just the medical version of it. And we just happened to find one that was HIPAA compliant, so we could build it all for them.
Yeah. Did you build your own app or did you hire somebody?
Ours is what I call a pseudo app. So it's basically just a button to a web page, which is what most people need.
Okay.
Because it's just a form. If you want something more,
just through WordPress.
Any of them,
Yeah.
WordPress, Wix, they both. We don't like WordPress. WordPress is okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not great.
I'm just
Wix
asking what you used.
Wix is what we use. It's more robust. It's a better, less It's kind of like this between iPhone and Android.
Okay. That's all you have to say.
Yeah, and so a lot of customers are like, well, I want all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, the problem is then it breaks.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get an iPhone, you might not be able to like overclock the processor, but it's going to ring when you need it to ring.
Yeah.
And that's, that it does what it says it's going to do all the time. So we prefer to stay specifically with Wix.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a button and then basically a form that we've built into basically a pseudo web page.
So going more into that, not just, okay, so everything's going digital.
Yeah.
But what do you see for business specifically in America? Like, do you see more regulation? Do you see more, do you think COVID's going to have a long-term impact? Do you see more consolidation where larger companies buying smaller companies? I mean, I think, I hate to say it, but I think mom and pop stuff is unfortunately going to start going away. I think COVID really took a hit on restaurant industry for one. I mean, it decimated it.
I don't. So
because I look at, like, for instance, I had a conversation with a guest previously. We were talking about BlackRock, and they're buying 15% of all housing that's available.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're pushing out these smaller investors because, for one, they can't compete with that. They're trillions. They have $6 trillion in assets, from what I understand, or under management. And so, just even like these big people coming in, you've seen that Amazon do that, Walmart do that specifically. But do you see like mom and pop shops like getting pushed out? And I'm talking for, like, speaking on behalf of smaller entrepreneurs. How do you think that they should mitigate that? And is that something that you see as a problem, or do you think it will go the opposite way, where mom and pop shops will increase and it'll counter that?
Both. So it's a cycle, right? So humans are human, and big companies provide a different experience than small companies. And it's all about what people are willing to pay for, and you just have to find. And I'll just use like Walmart, Amazon, for example, right? So everybody thinks Amazon's this massive company, and they are. They're nowhere close to the size of Walmart.
Well, their AWS service is really what gives Amazon more validity than even their shopping.
Right, but even Amazon is now building brick and mortar stores.
Yeah.
So the thing that makes everybody's like, oh, Amazon's
well,
the way
they
of the future.
did buy Whole Foods and
and now Amazon's like, but there's a certain percentage of the population that flat out will not shop online.
Yeah, it's true.
But
those people are dying.
No, that's not true.
You don't think so?
No.
You don't think that the vast majority? I mean, I haven't looked at the statistics, and I don't know if they would actually share them with us, but I would imagine most people over the age of 50 are not shopping on Amazon.
It's not. So the research I've seen, it's not age dependent. It's personality.
Okay.
So 35-ish% of people don't like shopping online. Okay. It's just they don't like it. Like, sure. It's not their thing. And I say that like as a...
But can industry survive off of just 35% of the population?
Yeah. Like, sure. I mean, if I can, yes.
Well,
it depends, because it's the product,
your pool shrinks in the sense of, even like, okay, so you have 35% of the population, but you're not going to be able, like, you're not going to have like 15 shoe stores in a town. You're going to have maybe 3 to feed that to
maybe. But so what happens is, as things get more, so it's kind of, I mean, they used to say the same thing, like they say the same about truck drivers. Like, if you get rid of all the truck drivers, what are those people going to do? It's like, well, who cares? Like, it's not like they're like, well, they're going to fire them. Like, maybe, but that's not.
We're a long ways away from that too. Anyway,
probably 20 years.
Yeah, at least.
I'm just saying.
But even then, they're like, even Elon Musk was saying, you're probably still going to have a guy standing there, even if it's automated.
Yes, no, that's fair.
On a truck.
But I'm saying that's the argument, right? Like, whether or not it's possible, that's regardless of the argument,
sure.
Right? But the aspect of that is like, but that's the first step in a 9 sequence chess move,
Absolutely.
right? So the real answer is, let's say that, because cost of transportation is a huge percentage of the cost of business, right?
Yes.
And so let's say you drop that by 30%.
That's huge.
That's a massive drop,
yes.
right? And so products get cheaper. So now every person is spending less money. And again, humans have a comfort level of how much money they have versus what they consider expendable income.
But at what point does that monetary value coming, because for instance, like Amazon's creating their own delivery service, like they're starting to compete with FedEx and let me finish. UPS.
No,
Whereas if they can, the greater pool of business owners are going to save 30%. So the competing for prices. But if Amazon has their own delivery services, they're going to be able to beat that even more by 20%. So I could get shoes for 20% cheaper, even though costs has come down for everybody else. But Amazon, because they've streamlined from end to end.
Yep.
They're 20% cheaper. How many people are going to say, you know what, I'm going to spend that extra 20% to support this local person?
Well, almost none, but that's the second chess move, right?
Sure.
I'm talking to 9, right? So